Good day, everyone, and welcome to this presentation of the food environment part of the National Dietary Intake Survey. This is part of our fieldwork training, and my name is Dr. Bianca van der Westhuizen, and I am part of a wonderful team that compiled all these materials. So by no means is this my own work. I'm part of this wonderful team here that's listed here, and I will take you through the presentation for our food environment training. So just as an introduction, school food environment will be examined in order to determine which foods are sold in the school tuck shops or by school vendors in and outside the school. So that is the main purpose of why we want to investigate the school food environment. So the measurement tools that we are going to use will be, the first one is going to be a school food environment checklist. The second one is going to be a principal or a delegate interview, and this will be conducted to determine the school's profile as well as the policies, the school initiatives and practices regarding the sale or provision of foods and beverages to learners at the specific school. Then the third questionnaire is a food manager interview, and this will be conducted to determine the sale or the provision of foods and beverages to children at the school as well. Then we are also investigating the ECD food environment. So ECD is Early Childhood Development Centers. So this will be investigated for children older than 2 years, and the measuring tool that we are going to use here is also a questionnaire that's divided into two parts. So food provisioning will be investigated to collect food, nutrition and health information on the specific ECD center through a questionnaire addressed to the principal or the head teacher, which will form part of, which is part 1, and through field worker observation, which is part 2. Then just a side note that you may find when you visit the schools that you should be flexible. So you might do questionnaire 1 first, which is the checklist, or you might find that the principal is now available, so then you have to do your principal interview first. So just bear in mind that it's not needed to follow up on each other, but rather should be flexible. So whatever suits the personnel and the school that you are busy doing the audit on. Then also just something to remember before we go on to and get into the actual questionnaires is it's really important when you are out and doing field work that you should be very friendly and cognizant of the fact that we are entering their space and taking some of their time so that we can get information. So always be aware of that and always be very friendly to the teacher or whoever is helping you at the schools, and keep the communication open. Tell them exactly what they can expect, how long it will take, what are you going to do, what do you need, just to make it more easier. Someone can get a lot more done if you are more friendly and if you have good communication skills than someone that's maybe not. So just as a side note. So let's go into the first questionnaire, which is the school food environment checklist. It's also numbered 1, as you can see there. So the aim of this questionnaire is it will serve as a framework of objectives the field worker will look for in an environment. So the tools that you have to have on hand will be the tablet that will be provided to you, a letter of support from the Department of Basic Education, a letter of support from Department of Health, and then ethics clearance from University of Western Cape. Then you also need your official identification, information sheets, and consent forms. This will all be provided to you, so you don't need to worry about that. Just make sure that you have it with you when you visit the schools for the school audits and checks. So instructions for completion. This is also included on the actual questionnaire. But yeah, firstly, you will meet with the designated school contact person at the school that you are visiting. Then you will get the relevant consents. And then it's important that you firstly identify where is the school boundaries, where is the school entrances, and it can be official or unofficial entrances, anywhere where you can see that your children or teachers can enter the school premises. That will count as a school entrance. Then areas that are no access zones, so this is for children and research staff. Then the location of school canteen, the tuck shop, bathrooms, playfields and water fountains is important. Then also specific time periods for meals or breaks, or the PE period is also important. So this is going to help you a lot when you start with your checklist, so that you know exactly where to go and look. So it's important that you identify all these areas first before you start. Also a note, request permission to walk the grounds to get a general idea of the boundaries, as well as any important feature of the built environment. So this is where that checklist comes in that I just spoke about. So walk around, request permission to walk around the grounds. And then it's also important, and I think it will help you a lot, if you request permission for a senior student or a prefect or even a staff member of the school to accompany you on the audit. So they can walk with you on the school grounds, and it may even go quicker because they can easily identify where the entrances are or where the canteen is, or whatever the case may be. So during your walkthrough, assess all entrances and surrounding areas and record the items as outlined in the checklist that we are going to come to now. Walk or drive around the surrounding roads to familiarize yourself and also to verify that the audit is complete. Okay, and then it's always important, if you are unsure about any answers on the audit, you can please verify that with the school representative, or you can also ask the study coordinator to maybe assist you with that. Okay, so this is now where we start with the first questionnaire. So a very important step is obviously to complete the identification fields. So this is what this will look like. You will have to fill in the EA code, the school code, your field worker code that will be provided to you, as well as the date that you are visiting the school. So this is extremely important. If this is not filled in and you fill in all the checklists and all the questionnaires, we will not be able to tie this to a specific school, which is not ideal, and then we cannot use the data. So make sure that you fill in your identification fields correctly before you start. Okay, so the first part, section 1 of the food and beverage sales checklist, is photos. So you can request permission to view and take one picture of the vendor stall's content for each location selling food, and then complete the information about the types of food and beverages being sold or provided. So the information about the types of food, you will see that comes in next, so don't worry too much about it. First, we want you to take pictures of the different areas. Okay, everyone that is selling food. Okay, so guidelines for taking pictures with the tablet. So one picture per food sale area is important. You only need to take a front view picture. The interior view for the tuck shop is important, so that most items that are sold in the tuck shop can be seen. Very, very important. Kindly ensure that no children or any adults are in your picture that you are taking. So you can ask them to please turn their backs or maybe move out of the focus or cover face when you cover their faces when you are taking the picture. Very, very important. And then here are some examples of what we mean by front view and taking pictures of any of the any stands or vendors that's selling food, including the tuck shop. So you would see in your left top view, that picture is a typical picture of a tuck shop. So try to get in most of the stuff that is sold in the tuck shop. And then you will see the left hand side top is typical a picture of a vendor maybe sitting outside the school selling fruits. So then you take a picture of that. So yeah, that will be the pictures that you are taking. So this is section 1 for the photos. So now we are going to move on to the actual checklist. Now we want to know what foods are actually sold in these different areas that you've now identified. Okay, so please describe the section 1 checklist instructions. So first of all, please describe the general appearance and identify the presence of any of the features listed below. Mark using an X in the yes box. And then some items require you to include the number. I will show you now exactly what we mean by this. For sections requiring the total number of amenities, record only those that are functional, so those that are in a good or adequate state. If the feature exists but are entirely or almost unfunctional, you can still tick yes. And then where indicated, record the number of items available. Do not mark the no column until all the assessment areas are done. So when you mark no, you should be able to state with confidence that the features is not visible from any entrance or the main gathering area of that location. So it's always a good idea, if you are done with your checklist, to do another walk through the school and around the school, just to make sure that there's none of the foods listed available. Okay, so this is then what your checklist is going to look like. So you will see there's section 1A to C will look more or less the same. And indicated in red here, you can see what we meant by not only do you need to indicate yes or no, but also then you have to put in the number of mobile vendors, for instance, that's located outside the school, as well as the number of brands in some cases. So just make sure that you read properly, okay? So moving on then, section 1A has to do with foods. Okay, so you are going to see, let me just get out my highlighter here. So you will see here on the top part, there's school canteen or cafeteria, school tuck shop, inside the school, vending machine or mobile informal vendor inside the school, mobile vendor outside the school or across the road from the school. Then there's also a question regarding school feeding scheme. Okay, so make sure that you note this. Then in your column in this side, you will see there's foods listed here. So we have tub yogurts, fruits, there's a bunch of food listed here. So basically what you are then going to record for us is you're going to read, for instance, if we start from the top tub yogurt sweetened. So then you will investigate the school canteen or the cafeteria, and then you're going to indicate yes or no. Is this food product present in this area or not? All right. Same with the school tuck shop, the vending machines inside the school, mobile vendors outside the school, and as well as the school feeding scheme. Important also to notice that it's the meal served on the day that you are visiting, okay? So is there tub yogurts that's going to be served on this day, yes or no? Okay, so then you go through this list and you mark what you see in the different locations listed above. Section 1B, it looks similar, except this has to do with beverages. Okay, so again, you will see locations provided here: school canteens, school tuck shop, informal vendors inside the school, and then vending machine or mobile of informal vendors also inside the school, and then we have mobile vendor outside the school. Okay. So again, we are listing a bunch of items here. So for instance, we start from the top, plain bottled water. So if you go and look at the school canteen, you can see, yes, there is plain bottled water available here. Then you're going to mark across in the yes column, and you can see that there is 4 different brands of plain bottled water that you can see in the school canteen, then you would fill in 4 here. Okay, excuse my computer and handwriting. The same you will do with the school tuck shop, the vending machines and the mobile vendors. Okay. Also important to note is that, say for instance, there's a number of vendors sitting outside of the school. You should make sure that you tally the total number of different brands. Say for instance, if we take fruit juices, for example, 100% fruit juices listed here, and mobile vendor that's outside the school, say for instance there's 3 mobile vendors outside the school that is selling 100% fruit juices, and mobile vendor 1 has 2 different brands, mobile vendor 2 has also 2 different brands, and mobile vendor 3 has 3 different brands. Then you have to record all of their brands and make sure that if mobile vendor 1, for instance, sells liquid fruit as well as mobile vendor 2 also sells liquid fruit, then that's only one type of brand. So don't count the brands more than once. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so then you will move on. You will move on with all the beverages listed here, and then you will indicate for us where you can locate it in these different locations. Then section 1C, the same thing counts here. This is just other items that is sold at the canteen or the tuck shop or the inside vendor machines or outside vendors. Okay, so this is typical tobacco products, stationery that you can see, or sanitary pads, or any other items that is not listed here. You can list them here and mark where and what location that you see them. Okay, so if we go on to section 1D, this has to do with if the school has a school feeding program or not. Okay, so this is very specific. So you will see the questions are very simple to answer. So first one will be, does the school have a menu of food served to children? And then it's yes, no, or you don't know. Okay, so if it's yes, then you must please ask them to see the menu, and then you can move on to question 1.1. So question 1.1, menu seen by the field worker, then you tick yes, and you take a photo of the menu, then you can tick that, and you indicate what day of the menu is being followed on this day. So for instance, is it a day C or a day D menu that's followed, or maybe a Friday or Monday or Tuesday menu followed? So you can indicate that in the space provided. And then you can ask them if the menu for the day is actually followed. So you indicated that this is a Friday menu, for instance, but is it actually the day that it's being followed? So then they can indicate yes, no, or they don't know, or the menu is not available. Okay, and then 1.3, then the field worker needs to check against the menu if it is available. So is the menu for the day actually then followed? So you ask them, but you must always also check. So yes, no, or the menu was not available. Okay, so this will be important. So then we are moving on to section 2 of the food and beverage sales checklist, and we are still on questionnaire 1. Okay, so section 2 is going to be divided into section 2A, B, and C. So section 2A has to do with the external school neighborhood. Okay, so this is also included in your questionnaire, but I'm going to read it for you. This section is for surrounding areas immediately outside school grounds. So anything located in front of the school entrance, across the street, along the front perimeter wall to the left and right hand side of the school property, and on the opposite side of the street. Okay, so you must please describe the general neighborhood and area immediately external to the school boundary within your immediate view. And here you should mark all option that applies. Okay, so let's look at the questionnaire. So this is the questionnaire, or the section 2A. So you will see there's again different options listed here, and then you can mark with a yes or no, and then there's a space for comments or description. So this is a very important part of this questionnaire. So I always say, if you are unsure about whether you should include a comment or description, rather include it. So we would always like more information rather than less. We don't want to wonder when we read in the data, you know, what exactly was the case in certain instances. So rather put a comment in your description if you feel that it is needed. Okay, so let's look at, for instance, if we look at or restaurants or food buildings nearby. So you will look then in the immediate external school neighborhood, and you will see, yes, there is a restaurant maybe on the opposite side of the school. So then you tick yes here, and you would write a short description here, restaurant opposite side of school, and you can even put in, if you can see what restaurant it is, you can even put in I don't know, Steers restaurant opposite of school, whatever the case may be. Okay, so you will see there's a bunch of scenarios here. Is there a bus or a taxi stop? Is there marked pedestrian crossings that you can see? Okay, so this is what section 2A asks. So if we move on to section 2B and C, these are external food and beverage vending is section 2B. So here we ask you to please describe any vending of foods and beverages taking place outside the school. The vendors must be visible from the school entrance or must be located along any perimeter fence from which students can access them. This should be done when the vendors are typically present at lunchtime or after school, so you can verify this with the school liaison. Then section 2C has to do with external food and beverage marketing. So here we would want you to please describe any food or beverage marketing or branding with company logos which appear outside of school grounds, especially on the streets, along the entrances to the school ground, or visible from the school grounds. Okay, so this is what section 2B will look like in your questionnaire. So again, this top part just is an explanation for you if you maybe forgot. Then you will see a bunch of scenarios is again listed here. So here we ask mobile or street vendor on the same side of the road as the school. Is there one? Yes or no? And then you must put in here for us in the comments or description section if you can see any interesting, like there's 3 vendors on the same side of the road. One is selling fast foods, one is selling fruits and vegetables, or whatever the case may be. The same goes for street vendors on the opposite side of the road. So you will see there's a long list of scenarios that we are asking you to assess. Okay, so predominantly fruit or vegetable vendors, is there yes or no, and in the comments. And here you can also, sorry, I forgot to mention this. This is important. This means the number. Okay, so like I said here, for instance, if there's 3 street vendors that is on the same side of the road as the school, then you will put in here, yes, there is vendors, there is 3 vendors here. Okay, and then any description you feel is needed for us to know. Okay, and then yeah, you can go through this list. There's even a bar or adult lunch or shebeen or a tavern option. Is there one that's close to the school? Yes or no? And the number of say for instance shebeens that you can see. So this is then section 2B. Section 2C is external food or beverage marketing, and here again we just provide you with a description of what we exactly want here. That I've already mentioned that in the previous slides. And then it's also important that you use a paper tally, and then you input into the form the total number of items calculated. Okay, so say for instance if we look for example at billboards. So you walk out of the school and then immediately, for instance, you can see there's a Coca-Cola billboard. So then you would say, yes, there is. Then you walk to the other side of the other entrance and you would see, oh yes, there's also a Simba chip billboard on the other side of the entrance. So then that's already 2 billboards. So you're not going to put in here 1 and then 1 and 1 and 1. You are going to put the total number of billboards that you could see. Okay, so in this case it would be 2. And then here you add what brand you could see. Okay, so it was Coca-Cola and it was, for instance, Simba. Okay, I hope that is clear. Then you move on, large posters, banners, umbrellas that you can see, food branded walls of buildings, branded equipment, which is coolers, ovens, furniture, booths, carts or trays. And then can you see any branding on any school transport vehicles? Then you indicate here yes, no, the number of branding, and then a comment if you wish to put something in there. Okay, so this is then section 2C, which has to do with marketing. Okay, so now we are moving on to section 3. So this has to do with our internal school compound. Okay, so everything included in section 3 has to do with surrounding areas inside school grounds. That's important for you to note. Okay, so let's move on to section 3A. So here again, we just describe what we need from you here, for in case you forgot. So then you again go through the list. Is the school gated? Yes or no? Is the security guard on site? Yes or no? You go through this list. Is there a sandpipe, outdoor drinking water fountains? Yes or no? Okay, so this is kind of straightforward. Moving on then to section 3B, has to do with designated food service areas. Okay, so this could be outside or in a tent or in a shelter and not necessarily inside a classroom. But this outside doesn't mean outside the school. So remember, we are now focused on what is going on inside the school. So again, we can see there's a list here that we can go through. So canteen. Is there a canteen that that is present in the school? Yes or no? And then the comments. Is there a refrigerator or freezer that you can see? Stove, sink, serving table. You will see there's a bunch of options here. Then we ask you, for instance, the mobile vendor or food stall, how many can you see? And this is inside school premises. Vending machines with food and beverages, how many can you see? Then classroom food sales or provisions, record only if you can observe something. Okay, yeah, so this is then section 3B. Section 3C has to do with designated play areas or PE areas. So PE is physical education areas. Okay, so again, we are listing here options for you, and you have to tick yes or no in the comments. So is there a designated play or PE area? Is it grassy? Does it have a lawn? Is it mostly dirt? Is it concrete? So yeah, you will see there's a bunch of options that we are asking here. Is there marked pool courts? Is there swimming pool? And so forth. So section 3D has to do with toilet and sanitary facilities. Again, we ask you here to use paper tally and input into the form the total number of items that you can see. So remember again, we are only focusing on inside school premises for this section. So is there any pit toilets that you can see? Yes or no? And if you tick yes, what is the number that you can identify? A flush toilet, working basin, water storage drums or scoops near the toilet for hand washing. Any of those that you can see within the school premises. Okay, and then again, section 3E has to do with food and beverages marketing. but remember that we are now focusing on within school. Okay, so the previous section focused on what is going on outside the school premises, and here we are focusing on what is going on inside school premises. So again, we ask you to identify any food or beverage billboards that you can see, and if yes, how many can you see, and then also to list the brands for us. Okay, and then you go through this list. Stationery used in school. So obviously stationery is used in school. What we mean here is any of the stationery branded within the school. Say for instance, the teachers are using a Coca-Cola pen or something that you can see. Then you indicate yes and the number, and then also you can write the description here. Pens are listed as Coca-Cola branding or whatever the case may be. Then your vending machines, and then school transport or vehicles, any of those that are branded. Okay. So then there's also a space here for any other observations that you saw that we may not have included in this list provided. You can indicate that for us. Okay, so that was then questionnaire 1, which is the checklist. And I also think that this questionnaire will take the longest. That's why it's important for you to start with identifying the school boundaries, like I've said in the first few slides, so that you know exactly where to go and look for these different areas that we ask. Okay, so now we're going to move on to questionnaire 2, which is the principal or senior teacher questionnaire, or it's also indicated as a delegate questionnaire, principal or delegate questionnaire. Okay, so first of all, important is to complete the identification fields as indicated. So you will include all the details here provided, as well as the date that you are conducting. And this is a face-to-face interview that you will be doing with the principal or the delegate teacher that's provided. So firstly, it's important for you to check that consent is obtained before you proceed with this questionnaire. So you can start with your questionnaire by reading the following to your participant. I'm going to read it to you now. I do want to stress that it is important for you to not sound like it's a rehearsed story that you are just reading off to the participant. So try and make this your own when preparing before you go and visit the schools. But it should be something like, thank you for taking the time to answer our questions. This questionnaire is about the school's profile, as well as the policies, school initiatives and practices regarding the sale or provision of foods and beverages to students within your school. Questions about the physical education and playtime activities available to students will also be included. So for the purpose of this questionnaire, what we mean by policy, school initiatives and practices, it can mean any law or rule or regulation or administrative order or initiatives that affects your school environment that has been adopted by your school. It can be a policy or initiative that is issued or initiated by the school, the local school PTA, the school board, the Department of Education, or any other agency. Please answer all the questions as best as possible. There are no right or wrong answers. It should not take you more than 15 to 30 minutes to complete, and we are always available if you have any questions or concern about any aspects of the questionnaire. Okay, so then you will read that to your participant before starting. Okay, important then is to record all answers using an X in the appropriate box and complete numeric answers when prompted to. Okay, so firstly, we're going to ask what is the school year level of the school that you are visiting. Then you mark the appropriate box here. Okay, what is the gender that are attended at school? Is it all boys school, all girls, or is it both? Then the total number of students enrolled and the total number of teachers full-time equivalents. So it's important to ask that then to your interviewee. So then you will see there's 19 questions that are asked in this questionnaire, and they are all marked with an X as indicated previously in the appropriate box or the space provided. Okay, so then you will ask, what is your role or relationship with the school? How many years have you worked at this school? Is there a dedicated person or group directly responsible for overseeing and monitoring the school meal program or foods available to students in your school? So important here that you may choose more than one option here. Okay, so yeah, who's the dedicated person that's overseeing the school meal program? Is it the principal? Is it a specific teacher? Is it the principal and a teacher and parents? So make sure that you capture all the appropriate options that's provided. So question 4, which school meals and foods are being sold or provided to the students at the school? Usually or most of the time you will see there's different options here. So is breakfast, lunch and a snack served, or maybe nothing is served and the students need to carry their own lunch, or they buy from the tuck shop, or whatever the case may be. So you will see that there's different options here that you can choose. Question 4.2, who are the providers of the meals in your school most of the time? Okay, so you can see that you can select more than one option here. So you will see here on the question that will be provided on your tablet, you will see that there's a provider listed here, and then the National School Nutrition Program, a food company, or the school itself is an option. Okay, so say for instance the breakfast option is then here. So then you would say the breakfast is provided by say for instance by a food company, which is Kellogg's, for instance, is providing the breakfast. If we talk about a snack, then you can say the school itself maybe provides the snack. Whatever the case may be, you will tick the appropriate option here. Sorry, let me just go back. So question 5, can you describe the appropriate duration usually allocated to each of the following break periods for your school? So here you must indicate breakfast is not offered or lunch only, and then how much time here is allocated, say for instance for lunch. Is it 15 to 30 minutes? Is it more than 1 hour? Whatever the case may be. Then 6, in the past 12 months, important that it's noted here, that your school have any policies, initiatives, or practices concerning the following activities. If yes, indicate whether it was affected or implemented. Okay, so you will see there's questions listed. Then you must indicate yes, it is a policy or initiative. But if it is yes, is it effective? Is it moderately effective or not effective at all? Or maybe the policy exists, but it is not implemented yet. So there's different options here that you can list for your interviewee. Then 7, to what extent do you disagree or agree with the following statements about food and beverages at the school? Then you read them the statement, then you ask them, do they strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree? Question 8, in the past 12 months, please indicate which, if any, of the following items were sold, provided as part of a fundraising for the school. So then you list these different options, and they must say yes or no, and then you tick it in the appropriate box. So this has to do with fundraising. Number 9, does your school offer any of the following? Again, there's a bunch of options listed here, so then you must just tick yes or no, whatever is the appropriate answer. Question 10 to 12 is, or question 10 and 11 is similar, so you must just read the question to the interviewee, and then you tick the appropriate answer. Question 12 says many schools often receive sponsorship or a donation from a food or beverage company for helping the school or students within the school. Please indicate if any of these have been received within the past 12 months. Okay, so you're going to see there's a bunch of options listed underneath question 12. So they will include, for instance, educational equipment like books, computer, classroom, or furniture. If they indicate yes, then they must say, you know, what was the company's name that sponsored. For instance, Kellogg's sponsored books, or whatever the case may be. So make sure that you capture all the information for question 12. Then question 13, there are some of the challenges school face when promoting healthy foods and eating habits in the school environment. Please tick those that apply to your school. So you're going to read out these scenarios, and then they indicate if these were challenges that they are facing in their school with regards to promoting healthy foods or not. Then question 14 to 19 has to do with the physical education and activities at the school. Okay, so 14 is PET a mandatory class at the school? So is it scheduled for each grade levels? And then you must indicate yes for all or yes for most grade levels, and then list what grades have the physical education. 15, if yes, how much class time is allocated to formal physical education for students? 16, who is usually assigned to teach the students PET classes? Then you tick which one is currently teaching these classes. 17 is how the classes are structured. 18 is from the following list, please indicate which sports are offered at school, or PET program, or offered as an extracurricular activity at the school. Okay, so at the school is important. So you tick all that applies. Then 19, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the following statements about physical activity? So then you're going to again read the different statements that will be listed here, and you ask them to indicate if they strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree with the statement that is read to them. Alright, so that was then questionnaire 2, which has to do with the face-to-face interview of the principal, teacher, or the delegate that will be given. Okay, so let's move on to questionnaire 3, which is the food manager questionnaire of the canteen or the tuck shop. Okay, so again, important that you provide and you fill in all the necessary requirements for the questionnaire, which is the date, school code, field worker code, and so forth. So also again, before you start with this questionnaire, check that consent is obtained, and then you can start your interview by reading the following to your participant. This questionnaire includes questions about the sale or provision of foods and beverages to children within your school. Please answer all questions to the best of your ability. There is no right or wrong answers, and all details will be kept confidential. It should not take you more than 15 to 30 minutes to complete. So this questionnaire is very, very straightforward. So you are simply going to ask, what is your role or relationship with the school? Then you're going to tick the appropriate option. How many years have you worked at the school? Number 3, which school meals and foods are being sold or provided to the students at the school? Usually or most of the time, and you can choose more than one option. Does the canteen or school offer any of the following special promotions or activities to encourage or discourage any of the following food or drink? Okay, so is there maybe a no cool drink or sugary drink day? Is there a fruit day? Is there a water day? Whatever the case may be. And then number 5, how often were each of the following food or beverage items provided for children in the past month? Okay, so for instance, you will see there will be a bunch of beverages listed here as well as foods. Then you must just indicate here, it has water, for instance, has never been offered to children in the past month, or whatever the case may be. Number 6, to what extent do you disagree or agree with the following statements about food and beverages at the school? So then you read them, these statements, and you ask them to indicate which of these options they agree with. Are students provided with water throughout the day? Many schools often receive sponsorship or donations from food to help the school meal program within the school. Please indicate any of the following has been received. So then you indicate here, has maybe food service equipment, for instance refrigerators, ovens, or whatever, been received in the last past month from a food or beverage company, yes or no? Number 9, when deciding what foods are sold in the school, what are the 3 most important factors that you consider? So make sure you can only choose 3 options here. So make sure that it's only 3 options that they can choose. Then number 10, what are your 3 top sellers for each of the categories? So if we look at packaged, ready to eat foods, what are the top 3 that is sold? Cooked foods and then beverages, and then you will see we ask the price and also the number sold per day of these 3 listed items. Then I would really like to thank you for your attention. We have concluded the food environment part of the National Dietary Intake Survey, and I really hope that it was insightful, and I hope that you are as excited as we are to start with the collection of the data. So yes, hopefully we will be able to interact with you soon in person, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.